What's going on, everybody? I am here for my very first live stream. I'm excited about this. Well, I want to do a reaction to Miss Shiloh. I don't know if anyone knows who she is, but she has some very good talking points that she did on her recent interview. And I wanted to kind of go over it. I wanted to react and, get some feedback on what people really think, because I really feel like she hit some really key talking points for the Black community. You know, my goal, my mission is to bring Black families back together. Like, I'm a married man. I'm a father of um, three beautiful boys, by the way. And, I struggled. I had my things in life where I wasn't where I wanted to be when I had my first child. And then I started realizing as I grew what life was supposed to be as I grew older and, becoming a man and becoming a father, and how much the community means to me. It's just because being a Black man alone is a struggle. Being a Black man alone, um, you know, has its ups and downs in the United States. And it's important that men my age, which I'm 42 right now, that we're actually talking to our community. We're talking to the young Black men. We're teaching them and guiding them. We're showing them the importance of like marriage, but at the same time, we're not gonna just, pick a woman just to pick a woman, but picking the right woman, picking the woman that fits. A woman that's willing to get on your program, you know, and what to look for. How do we guide that to these young, Black men on what to look for when it comes down to picking a mate? Essentially, for me, picking a woman is the most important thing that we can do as Black men. Because if you pick the wrong woman, she could break you. Just because she's a Black woman doesn't mean she has your best interest at heart. So, without further ado, I would like to jump into the video. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. This way we could get into it. All right, here we go.
All right, Neriah, I want to say welcome. I never knew TV, right? Appreciate you guys coming up.
Thank you.
We're gonna get right into it. First question I have is, I would like to ask about. I heard you speak about this in the past. I like you to speak about it now. Can you talk about the strategic destruction of Black men and how the Black community assists in the destruction of Black men?
Sure. So, in order to really get a full understanding, we need to go back. And we need to go back into about the 60s, when up until that time, Black families were getting married at the highest rates. They were out marrying whites at that time. When the welfare system came into play, they created the man in the house rule, which removed men from the homes, in which the government now became the men of the family. So with that, it started to perpetuate a feeling that women started to feel as if they didn't need men anymore. Then on top of that, we had the feminist movement. So that also started to perpetuate the independent, strong Black woman. That label started to be put on us as well. Then you go into the 80s, then you got Oprah that comes into play. So from that, it's like, okay, women now are starting to be on television. We're starting to produce movies and books. You got Terry McMillan, How to Get Your Groove Back, and all of this stuff. And then women just started to think like, hey, I don't need a man. At which time now our men are being incarcerated at high numbers because of the crack epidemic. They're dying, jails, all of these things. So now they're starting to look worthless, right? So if I'm at the time, they weren't CEOs and CFOs at the time, the women, but if I have an office job and I'm making $40,000, what am I going to do with this man? I don't need him at this point. So then it just started, we started to teach that. We started to teach that to our girls. You know, we started mothering our sons, teaching our daughters to be strong and independent. And then you have social media, which now came into play in this new century of big baddies and boss chicks and all of that. So I think that it's an accumulation of things. I think that I don't want to say the man or the government. I think they started it and we picked up the baton, black women, and ran with it. Because at this point, we really think there's no use for you all. So,
You know, it's wild. Um, I was
So I'm
speaking
gonna
to
stop that. I'm gonna stop that right there, and get to a talking point. Um, I truly believe that the feminist movement was one of the worst movements for the black community. If you look at it, right, women, women create the culture in every society. They set the tone on what it's going to be like. Men, we just build, right? We go outside and we just make stuff. We put the streets together. We put the buildings together. We create jobs. We create resources for our children. You know, not saying that what we do is not very vital to any society of people, but we have our role, right? Women, essentially, what women have is the strength to say how society will be ran, right? Men make laws and we shape it around women. So to know that, right, and to have a movement such as harmful as the feminist movement, which, you know, I agree, women's rights, women should have the right to work, the right to choose, the right to vote, the right to all the above. But when it came down to, I don't need you because I'm working, or let's go to the welfare system and that movement, which kicked the father out the household. If we have to look at the detrimental part of what that did to our community, it's very sad. I'm gonna make myself a little bigger. It's very sad. It destroyed us essentially. So, it made our women feel as if they do not need us at all, right? Um, you know, in no society, in no race of a man is it going to be to where the man is just so well endowed that he can just pay all the bills and he could do everything all by himself. It's a very small percentage. You're looking at the top 10% of men in the United States that can do that. So to know that knows that the family always works together, right? And I believe every other race of women really understand that. Our race of women, we struggle with that, right? Our sisters, they struggle with that. You see them, the feeling that they have is that the man is supposed to just do everything and we're supposed to just provide a soft life for them. But if you look at the Asian women, they're outside running their Chinese restaurants. They're outside, in the fields doing what they need to do, cutting down plants, cooking in their own countries, doing what they need to do, even still hunting to this day, right? There's no soft life. They work together for the purpose of a family, right? But for some reason, I mean, it's not even for some reason, we were not taught as Black people what to do, how it should be done, what needs to come together to make this happen. And to me, it's sad. I'm going to continue.
to a lady one time, right? And she didn't say that black men are useless. She said she was taught indirectly that black men, and this is an educated young lady too. She was taught indirectly that black men are useless. And it was kind of wild in the sense that here you have an educated person who is married saying that. I was taught indirectly that black men are useless.
and I'm not surprised. I was taught that because I was raised by a single mother, right? So, and I have three sisters. So she was raising four girls, and she had to teach us to be strong. I guess she felt that she needed us to be strong, and in being strong, that meant you do not depend on a man. Men are dogs. They'll hurt you. You need to do your own thing. So subconsciously and not indirectly, directly, we were taught these things. You know, um, I personally should be part of that she woman man hater club because of what I was taught, but I'm not. You know, look at TV. Look at how you portrayed. I had a conversation on the way here. The only portrayals that we see of you all: dead, jail, deadbeats. Where are the Bill Cosbys?
Oh, just a comedian also. I notice I see a lot of shows and movies. The man is presented as someone who is unreliable, someone who's very almost a buffoonish vibe, both for black men and white men too, in their defense, right? But it's like it's a vibe where it's like you're definitely not dependable, and you're not to be taken seriously in the TV shows and movies. You know,
But when you say also white men too, when they do it, it's comedy. It's not something that sticks with them. When you all do it, that becomes a part of your characteristic and who you are as an individual and as a man. And
Very good point right there. Very good point right there. So think about what she just said, right? And look at movies like The Color Purple, right? I remember seeing The Color Purple when I was with my grandmother. I was a kid. I probably was like, I don't know, 8, 9 years old. And I remember watching that movie and the example that I saw of what a black man was. It was either he was a clown, right? Court jester. He was an abuser, right? What he did to his women were take advantage of him the moment he had a little power, just a little power. That man took full advantage of his woman, right? Of all the women around him, except for the woman that he was like, oh my God, she's drop dead gorgeous. She's this skin complexion. She's whatever. I'm going to, pretty much be the clown for her, right? So he had the one woman that didn't care about him, clowning him, but then yet and still, with his little bit of power, the land that he owned and all of that, he was able to take advantage of the other woman. This was the example of what we saw of men, right? And it's not saying that I didn't have the example of what a black man would be through TV when it comes down to watching people like Bill Cosby or, Full House. I'm not Full House. What am I thinking about? Carl Winslow and all of that, right? Those fathers, the black TV dads. We saw them, right? But just think about it though. How much and how often did they push that? More than it becoming box office hits where you saw a black man is either a clown, he's a gangster, he's a deadbeat, we see that more than anything. It's horrible. It's horrible. It destroyed us, man. And, this is why I'm here. This is why I wanted to create these talking points and get on YouTube and just start telling you my thoughts and my feelings about what's going on. Because I truly believe we could get back together at some point in the future. It ain't going to be no time soon, and I know it. I'm not oblivious to it. I'm not dumb. It won't even be in my lifetime. But at least as long as we continue these talking points, we can get there. But black men, listen, you are enough. You are enough. You're not what they tried to make you out to be. You're not a criminal. You're not a gangster. You're not a buffoon, right? You're not a clown. You're not somebody to get beat up and ran over. You're not the man that they try to portray you to be on these TV shows with cops running us down, and all they show is just the worst parts of your neighborhood. They don't show us in the suburbs, right? They don't show us out there working and actually being men of something, right? So we are more than that. We're a lot more than what they try to portray us to be. So let's continue.
Unfortunately, I'm not saying, there's good and bad apples in every bunch, but the bad apples are the ones that are being put on Front Street and that everybody is seeing. So, like, you're sitting here doing this, doing your thing, but you're categorized as a no good black man if you walk down the street and nobody knows anything about you.
even if they know something about you, you still ain't shit.
That's right.
It's just the truth, It is. How long have you been married?
For 13 years.
13 years. how are you able to break that cycle? Because the excuses a lot of people have to cop out is that, oh, I
All
grew
right.
up in
So I
this
wanted to go
environment.
over another talking point.
Because black men are the only
Here we go.
demographic that you can get online and say, and I've watched a couple of different of these divester women that call black men bullet bags, that we should do post abortions, when you have black sons, that you don't bring any value to the world.
People say that online.
Are you kidding me? Yes.
What they say they call black men bullet bags?
Bullet bags. It's one YouTuber. Her name is Divested Zelot. She is the worst. She is the worst. She said one time that she finds it sexy when a white cop is beating on a black man.
It's a black lady that said this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look her up. Absolutely. But this stuff stays online and it gets thousands and thousands of views, right? So if I say something about the LGBT community, oh, I'm canceled. If you say something about black women, oh, you're canceled. The only people that we can just trash are black men, and nobody seems to care. I started a petition so that we can get these divestors labeled as a hate group because it's sickening. Again, I have a son, I have two grandsons, I have nephews, I have men in my life whose lives are valuable and worthy, you know. And so for people to, black women who I look like, we part of each other. So for me to say that your life is worth nothing, and I love when police beat on you or kill you, that's giving the green light to say, like, who cares about you?
All right. Perfect point. Jonathan Majors, right? Let's look at his situation and just see the backlash that they got online for that, right? It was a lot of like, oh, well, that's what he gets for dealing with a white woman, right? That's what he gets. If he dealt with a black queen, that wouldn't have happened. I'm going to tell you this, man. Listen, most of the dudes that I know, most of the men that I grew up with, they wasn't in bad situations getting locked up because they was dealing with white women. They were dealing with women that shared their complexion. Most of the men that I knew got locked up for frivolous, like the dumbest reasons. Women would be the attacker. They'll hit him first, turn around, and get that man locked up. This is what I see, right? So to turn around and say, oh, you know, you're dealing with a white woman and this wouldn't have happened to you. Oh, I mean, you're dealing with a black woman and this wouldn't have happened to you. This only happens to you when you deal with white women. Listen, it's the black woman that she's talking about right now, right? The women that she is talking about that's online calling us bullet bags, right? Telling women to abort black babies. It is way more common than you think. It's happening all the time. This is why I say we as older men need to talk to the younger men. Because just because she shares your complexion, she is not your friend. She is not your sister. She is not your queen, right? You look at the kingdom, everybody's not a king or a queen, right? And if you call yourself a queen, where's your king? Because every queen has a king, right? And if that queen died, if that king died, that queen doesn't really hold any power. Where's your king? Get yourself a king, call yourself a queen. Other than that, you're just a peasant. You're just somebody else walking the street. You're not better than anybody. So let's start breaking the cycle and start pushing what we knew we had to do prior to 1965, which was be together, which was be a family, be a community. Let's build. All right.
You know, they call me mammies. They call me pick-me's. They call me all kind of names because I defend and I advocate for black men.
Can
All
we
right.
talk about?
So let's go to another point. All right. Where we at? 25:30.
fly, do all of that stuff, but they know nothing about keeping a home. They know nothing about rearing children outside of dressing them up cute and putting them on Instagram dancing. Like, what do you know about being a mother? And it goes back to these independent women from the 80s and the 90s that did not teach their daughters how to be wives. We are the only culture that does not teach our daughters to be wives. We teach our daughters to be independent women. We teach them how to be boss chicks. We teach them how to be everything else but a wife and a mother. And there's a balance. You could do both. I do it. You could do both.
I have a question, right? So, do you think there are enough men for women? I know statistically.
So let's touch that point though, right? As far as what we teach our daughters, right? A lot of mothers do teach their daughters to be independent women and they do not teach their daughters how to be wives. And that's mainly understandable because they were not taught to be wives, right? Themselves. So how on earth could you teach your daughter how to be a wife? So I get it, right? And yet still, what they do with their sons is they create a bunch of son husbands. And that's where the problem is, right? So you create a bunch of sons that you yourself wouldn't want to date those characteristics in the man as he gets older, as he grows into the man that you want him to be, right? Or you say you want him to be. But then it comes down to, hey, could you be mad at these men that you have in the dating pool right now when you just created the same version of that man, right? So hand in hand, daughters aren't raised right, sons aren't raised right, right? So we need our fathers in the household, right? This is where it comes for women choosing the right man to procreate with, saying, okay, I can have sex, but just because I'm having sex doesn't mean I gotta have a baby. Doesn't mean you gotta have a baby because you're having sex. Choose the right man to say, you're the one I'm going to make a copy of. And we move on from there. So let's go to another talking point. We are at 2750.
Can you talk about the dangers of single people being the voice for black relationships and the black family?
Let's start with Oprah, right? Like Oprah has had stepmen for how many years? He just been in the background benefiting off of whatever it is she has. She doesn't have any children, but yet and still people run to Oprah to listen to Oprah's advice on relationships. The dangers of it is like the blind leading the blind. What the heck can somebody tell you about something that they have never experienced before? This is like me trying to do a surgery and I ain't never been to school for it, and you just going to trust me to open up your brain and just start going in there doing surgery. It'd be ridiculous and stupid. And people that listen to people that have no experience shows the lack of intelligence, because how can I say it? I think that people think if they read books, right? And see, I'm not a book person. I'm a life person, right? You can't read a book and tell me nothing about myself. This is kind of why I have a problem with, I love therapy, and I think therapy is a good thing because it helps people. I've actually done it. But then I do have a problem with my therapist at times because you have not walked in my shoes. You only read these things in books. So I think people think that when they read books, it gives them the knowledge to be able to direct your life or give you guidance. Nah, that's not how that works. You have to live and learn so that I understand that you know what I'm going through. If I'm telling you that my husband is saying XYZ to me and it makes me feel this way, how do you relate to me? With something from a book? So, but I think that these people have been put in the forefront, these single folks, because again, it perpetuates that whole systematic breakdown of the black nuclear family, and that is what it is, because there are hundreds of happily married men and women who are therapists or who are relationship coaches. We don't see them.
And we don't want to hear from them too. This is the thing. we don't want to hear from them, because when they talk, they're going to give you something that is going to hold you accountable, and you're going to have to work at. This other set for entertainment is just complaining, and there's no follow up to it. It's just a complaint. There's no work. There's nothing to improve on. It's like a complaint, and you go about your day. Listening to them, you can tell that they're one, not in a relationship, or they haven't been in a relationship for any period of time, and also they're very immature in regards to how they break down the dynamics of a relationship. But I equate that to church, because a church where a pastor actually, I'm not a church person, but if you have a church where a pastor actually teaches, it's going to be empty.
It's empty.
If you have a church where it's just screaming and shouting, it's going to be packed.
Right.
Yeah, we want to be entertained.
You want to be pandered to.
We definitely want to be entertained. I watched this video the other day, and it's similar to the question you just asked about, single people and whatever. So this guy said he's been married for 20 years, and before he got married, he asked his fiance. He said, "Hey, when you get into an argument, if we get into an argument and you get mad, who are the first 5 people you gonna call?" And she named the people that she would call. So then he said, well, these are, and he asked her, well, why would you call them? And then she said, because, they'll give me good advice or whatever. So then he said, well, these are the 5 people that I'm going to call. And she said, why? He said, because they are going to tell me all of the good things about you and why I need to stay with you, versus the people who you're going to call that are going to be telling you why you need to leave me and that sort of thing. So we need to make an agreement that you have 5 people that you call that will talk sense into you, that like me, and I will do the same thing for you. So then that way it'll help us stay together, because the people she wanted to call were single people, who aren't in relationships, and it would destroy his marriage. So, but I thought that was really cool, a cool thing I've never even thought of that, because you just.
There we go. So it's nothing wrong with, I believe, having single friends, right? You can have single friends all day, right? But you do have to know and pay attention to who has your best interest at heart, right? You do want to have single friends that believe in marriage, that believe in unity, that don't have a modern mindset, right? Like I have single friends, right? And I'm a married man. I've been married for 7 years now. And in 7 years, I have single friends. But every friend that I have, if I ever got upset with my wife, they make sure that they tell me, hey, listen, look, that's your wife. So you got to respect her. You got to move a certain way with her. Even though right now you're not thinking as logical as you should be as a man, I need you to get back to the basics. Every single friend in my corner, that's how they talk to me, right? If I even had a man that was in my corner, the one time I got upset with my wife and I said I don't really ever say I want to leave my wife, but I know for a fact that if I were to tell them I wanted to leave my wife, they'll be like, yo, you bugging. You bugging. Did she cheat on you? Nope. Did she have a baby outside of the marriage? No. What are you bugging? What do you want to leave for? Right? I know my friends will say that, right? Even though, like I said, I don't ever be in a situation where I'm like, I want to leave my wife, or this is not something I want to do with myself. I'm never in that situation. But like I said, I do know the men in my corner. It's important, right? You got to have, even as women, people in your corner that's going to promote marriage, that's going to promote you being together. Like just as say, they'll get blessed as well, right? Anyone that I know that has always been encouraging to my marriage for my wife in these years, if they were single when I met them, they're married now as well. It's just something to think about. But anyways, I really wanted to go over this with y'all. This is, like I said, my very first time jumping on, any type of YouTube platform. I do Airbnbs and all that good stuff and coach people into getting into Airbnbs. This is something that I wanted to try that was new. And I'm excited to talk to my people, talk to the Black community, it's not even just the Black community. people in general, right? Marriage is the foundation to any civilization, right? And you know that. So I'm big on families being together, sticking together, working it out, dealing with what you got to deal with, being real with each other, even at times where you might not feel like it. It's so important to be. But anyways, y'all stay blessed. It was a pleasure talking with y'all, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Peace.